Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM show. How you doing? I'm at home for a little bit here, and it was time to shoot the show, so I'm shooting the show from home while I wait for some delivery guys to get here. Today is day 2 of the remix episodes, and what we're doing is we're taking, there was 4 episodes we did where it was like the step-by-step of using Nectar for the Gods nutrients, from the very, very basics of mixing it up into some little more advanced topics like checking your soil with a slurry test, the importance of pH, flushing, a little bit about SLF 100 and some of those other things. Still pretty basic though, but these episodes, when we did them in the past, they had little parts of the show all around them, and they were also totally out of order. So while we're waiting to start the new show, the reboot of the show on the first of the year, actually the second of the year, we're going to do some stuff here to get this in order and get them more specific. So yesterday, the episode was me doing the very basics of taking the nutrients out of the box, mixing them up, doing a pH. Today's episode is when we did an interview with Scott Ostrander from Nectar for the Gods a little while back, and he talked about slurry testing to test your soil and a little bit about the importance of pH and a few other topics like that. Tomorrow we're going to have one about flushing, and then we've got a third one where we talk about some more stuff about using SLF 100 as part of a flush and that sort of thing. So go ahead and watch the video. I will catch you at the end. We'll talk about that. So we're here with Scott. As you may or may not know, me and the audience, we've been going through the Spartan regimen. You're making fun of me. And
just laughing.
We've done all this part.
All right.
We're down to this part, and I thought it would be better to have someone who actually knew something about it, which I hope you do, to talk about it. So the first one is pH is critical. Why is pH critical with a line?
Well, pH is critical with any line because it's the potential of hydrogen, the availability of certain elements and minerals to be able to be brought up into the plant.
Okay.
Our industry is kind of driven on this NPK, which is the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium of all bottles.
It says it on all the bottles you get.
That's the NPK grower.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys, when they read those, all they're seeing is those 3 main elements, and what they're doing is they're following charts that say to make nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium most available, 5.7 to 6.2, 6.3.
Not the whole story. It's not the whole story?
Not for us. We actually, if you ran that with our line, 5.7 to 6.0, you would probably run into deficiencies most of the time.
Because the plant just couldn't get it at that.
They're not getting the nutrients that we've designed. We've designed our line off of a calcium molecule.
Okay.
So with all of these different forms of calcium that we put in here, to make that the most available, we need to get our pH in that 6.2 to 6.6 range, depending on veg or bloom.
Okay.
The earlier in veg you are, the lower the pH you're going to be. So 6.1,
Sure.
6.3.
Okay.
As you start to transition into flower, I start to slowly climb that into the 6.2, 6.4 range. When you're into flowering, then you really want to be up to that 6.4, 6.6 range.
Now, why is that? Why is it?
Because we're trying to get that calcium molecule that we put into all these bottles to be able to be absorbed through the stomata of the root zone.
Okay.
If the pH is really low, the stomata closes down and becomes too small for the calcium molecule to be absorbed.
Sure.
If we can get that stomata to open up through a higher pH, then the calcium draws in, and then the way we bond things to calcium, we're taking in the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium through the calcium molecule by bonding those together, and then that gets absorbed. So we try to go with a higher pH than most people are used to. It really catches people off guard, and most problems I have when people email the company are, I'm having all these deficiencies, here's the situation, and then we always end up finding out that they either have a really low pH, a super high pH, which everything's locked out, or a high salt load.
Now, when I first started with this, I was thinking pH in the mix that I make for it, but you're really talking about pH in the soil.
Well, both, because if my pH in my mix is on, and my pH in my soil is way low, the roots are already shut down, so they're not going to take in this higher pH feeding.
Okay.
If the pH in here is perfect and that's too low, then they're not going to absorb that because it's too low and the plant's already waiting for the higher pH product.
I'm guessing that might bring us into the start with good soil, because the soil probably coming into this whole thing, because I'm probably using potting soil, I'm not just planting in the ground out in the yard, is it may have a pH situation going on before I even get there. Is that?
Oh, no doubt, no question. Especially native soils, bag soils, potting soils. I mean, not all soils are created equal. And it may even look good in the bag. The downfall of potting soils is that what it's buffered at today is what it came off the line at. When it comes off the line at 6.4 and everything looks perfect, and then you go and you vegetate them, put them in the vegetative cycle for, let's say, 4 weeks, you got all that microbial activity brewing. I mean, for us, guys like us who are using compost teas and SLF and microbe life and all the different microbials, they're digesting stuff in the soil all the time. Whether they're eating residual bits of nectar, they're also in here eating
whatever's in there.
Cocoa, you know, in some instances, a lot of potting soil companies will use bark, wood byproducts.
Oh, wow. So that's terrible for this because it's eating that.
Well, they're digesting cellulose, and the cellulose is dropping off and becoming an acid, and the acid in 4 or 5 weeks will start building up, and all of a sudden your pH slips, and everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So a lot of times when you're having issues with other potting soils in our nutrient line, we find that the actual pH in the soil is so low that the plants aren't accepting the food anymore. So then we have to start looking at corrective measures to get the soil pH back up to a usable level.
So I'm guessing that these three all kind of fit together in a line. So you got the pH is critical, start with good soil. When in doubt, flush it out. The flushes are probably about fixing the pH level. So what does that mean as far as flushing? What are we doing?
Well, for us, flushing is, I mean, it's
an industry term, but you've got...
It's an industry term, and we use it primarily as a corrective action, or a preventative, if you will. So a lot of our customers come back with a feed, flush, feed, tea, feed, flush, feed, tea.
Which is part of the process.
It's their process. What they're doing is they're feeding the plant in the root system twice in a row. So you put the nutrients in, the plant's getting some, the microbes are getting some. On the third one, they put in a microbial tea or a compost tea or, a heavy mammoth P, microbe life, SLF solution. Then that solution will go in because it's not necessarily a nutrient, it is a living organism, a force. They go in there and they break down and digest all the excess nectar that has been not absorbed by the plant. So when the nectar isn't absorbed by the plant, it adheres to the medium and starts making more elements and more minerals and more trace things available by creating bonds and organic compounds. Then all the microbes we're putting on our tea day will break those bonds, digest those compounds, and turn them back into food for the plant. Then we go back to 2 more feedings. So the plant's getting fed, and microbes are getting fed again. And now we do a preventative flush. And the preventative flush is just pure Herculean harvest bone meal and Olympus up pH to a right level. That forms of calcium will go in there, tie up excess salts, buffer excess acids. It kind of resets the root zone in between feedings. So I do it as a preventative because I really need to do it as a curative. Curative means that, oh crap, this plant looks awful. All the leaves look like, and only because this one's so old on the bottom, but if my leaves I walked in and they start looking like this and they're up higher in the plant, that means something's going on.
Yellowed out, crinkly too, or mostly the yellow, or
both? I mean, this would show me calcium deficiencies in there.
What is that? Is that the
Well, this is genetics for a pepper, but
our plants, but it's like clenching itself up, kind of.
It's generally malforming cells in the calcium bond. It's just not absorbing the calcium at the right rate.
So you can do this just as part of your thing, but you don't know with your soil and that sort of thing. The slurry test, it says we recommend a slurry test.
Well, that's it. If you're buying number 4 soil and the sample kit, we already did it. Just go to town. If you trust us. If you don't trust us, then check your soil and slurry test right off the bat because it's nice to know your starting point. I highly recommend that if, let's say, you do a 4-week veg in your plant and then an 8-week flower. I would say I highly recommend at week 3, at the end of week 3, do a slurry test. Document that. Where's the pH and the PPMs of this plant? I'm about to put them into flower in a week. So we get all those numbers down, everything looks great. Let's say this is at 6.5, parts per million at 250, and we're gonna go into flower in a week. So I'm not having to worry about this plant. I'm gonna go right into flower. At the end of week 3 flower, right before week 4, when they're really gonna start stacking, putting on weight, really making the flowers be a flower, I check again to make sure my pH didn't slip or drift. Because if a lot of people get stuck off guard and caught off guard at the end of week 3, their pH is 5.7, they're going into the biggest stacking weeks of the flower production, but their pH is too low, and all of a sudden they stop building. And then they email me, why did my flowers stop? And everything looks healthy, but they're starting to yellow. They're starting, check your slurry. Because if you had checked at week 3, we could have done some corrective flushes or feedings even.
To get it where you need to be for when you really need to put on weight. So how do we do a slurry test? I guess that's
slurries are simple. You can Google it. You'll find 100 different ways. When you emailed our company, we need it this way. because there's 2-to-1s, there's 1-to-1s, there's 3-to-1s, and 4-to-1s.
But you're gonna know, babe. You want to be able to help them based on your standard you've set. One may be better or worse than the other, but you need to be this.
Yeah, our standard is equal parts 1-to-1.
Okay.
So when you email me this information, I ask you these questions. I'm going to ask you to do 1 part water, and ideally pH neutral water. Does not have to be RO, does not have to be distilled, but it has to be a good water source, something in the mid-6s or low 7s.
Okay.
Something with a parts per million, under 100. I always try to document what the starting water is, just so I have a sense of where we're beginning.
Okay.
If you're on a well and your pH is 8.5 and the parts per million 200, use distilled.
So you'd have to just go to the store and get you a jug of distilled water. You're good to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any kind of special stuff.
Nothing special.
Okay.
So we'll just start real fast by checking our pH and the, holy shit.
Okay, we're back with an actual working pH pen. That one was not great. So,
all right,
Slurry test.
All right, got a calibrated pH meter.
Truncheon.
Handy dandy TDS, and our soil in question.
Roxanne here is who we're working with today.
I'd say our moisture content's about 15-20%. It is today.
Yeah.
All right, so ideally you don't want to take it out of a soaking wet soil. Moist to dry ideally. I find when they're really dry, it takes forever to get the test done.
Kind of a hydrophobic kind of situation?
Very hydrophobic, especially with cocoa fiber.
Mm-hmm.
This one's got a nice moisture content to it, so this should be pretty fast.
Okay.
So our recommendation, or what we need to hear from you folks, is 1-to-1. So we're doing our 1 part soil, loosely filled, so I'm not packing it in there because that would not make it a 1-to-1.
Yep.
Put that in a container as such. Then we do our 1 ounce of water on top of that. This doesn't have to be absolutely exact, but ideally what you're trying to do is just equal parts. You're trying to make this into a basic mud or a slurry. Bob gave me this awesome stir stick slash.
Oh, hey, whoa!
Trip to the hospital slash. Okay.
This is what happens when you work with unstable people.
I do have a head injury, for God's sake, so there's that to worry about. Alright. Usually I like to let it sit for, minute, 2 minutes. I find that if you let it sit for 7-8 minutes, we oversaturate and it's not giving us what the actual root zone is living in.
Okay.
If your plant sat in that much water and that saturated for 10 minutes, that would not turn out well for your plant. So kind of look at it when you're doing your slurry, when you water your plants, and we're done doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah, he's good to go.
If we're going to put water into her and we watch how fast it drains through, that's kind of how fast we let this test go.
Okay.
Because now it's going through, that's what the plant's reading off of its potential of hydrogen, it's sucking up what it can at that point, and now the microbes are working. So that's watered through. Now I'm going to go ahead and test our parts per million and our pH. Do the pH first. Let's sit right in there. The nice thing is I've yet to break one of these meters doing this. I just was emailing the guy back and forth. I don't like doing that because I don't want to I don't want to break my ball by shoving my meter right into the soil. Well, don't do it that way. This is not, you won't get a good reading this way. This isn't going to give us the information we really want by just shoving these into soil. See, this is telling me we got
a reading?
250, 300 parts per million in the soil here. Let's see if it transfers.
So maybe this does work. Maybe you learned something.
No, the pH won't because it's a... the pH is an actual glass ball.
Yeah, a little different setup, yeah.
And it needs it to transfer through there. This is literally just 2 plates that are reading off of each other.
So they're reading the electrical charge of the conductivity.
Yep. Which is what you want. All right, so now...
What do we got?
6.6.
That's pretty good, eh?
Well, it just finished. I mean, it looks like you've taken off a lot of peppers.
Yeah, we've taken off a bunch of peppers off.
So right now, what I would actually recommend doing is dropping this thing back into the 6.3, 6.4 range. It kind of help it re-veg and re-flower.
Okay.
Once it starts putting on more flower sites, then slowly bring it back up again. So
So you should go like up and down.
And it's
something
okay
like
with that. Yeah, when you're looking at pH, pH is critical, but to us, it's critical being 6.2 to 6.6.
But you can go up and down within there to get you from your veg to your flower cycle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And look at it this way: this is the buffet. Rice is 6.1, chicken is 6.2, shrimp is 6.3, fish is 6.4. Did I say fish twice?
I don't
6.5.
know. I wasn't really paying attention.
This other kind of fish is 6.6, 6.7. You don't just eat the rice.
No, you know what?
kinda
That's
wanna-
rice.
This is rice. So basically, let your pH fluctuate because then it's allowing different forms of materials into the plant at different times.
Okay.
You don't want to go
makes
7 and
sense.
5, but anywhere in the 6s, you're going to be able to offer something different with every feeding.
So in nature, it's probably going up and down.
Oh, no question, because as microbes live and die, as things decay, as things are being broken down in nature, you're getting natural acids, enzymes, salts. Everything's building up, and then as Mother Nature rains on it, flushes it all back out and balances.
So we're
We're the only
natural.
idiots that screw things up. Mother Nature's got it figured out. We just are trying to pretend we're her.
So what about the parts per million?
Oh, parts per million, good call. So pH is looking good. That means the plant's absorbing the bone meal, the Gaia, the limestone.
Yeah.
The parts per million was at, we didn't even test that yet, have we?
No.
We tested it just in the
plant there. It'll be interesting to see if it's the same or similar.
No, a little higher. So we found out that running it this way, bad.
Bad.
Running it this way, true. So
It's science.
on this
So what do we
one,
got?
it says 500.
What does that mean?
That means that it's starting to not eat as much as you're giving it.
Okay.
So what we like to see is between 200 and 400 parts per million. When it gets above 400 parts per million, that means something's starting to build up here where the plant is starting to access the salt over the calcium.
Okay.
If this keeps climbing and gets up into the 8 to 900, then the plant's going to definitely stop eating calcium and only want salt as a meal. And then you'll start to get new growth, will start curling and clawing, you'll start getting deficiencies up here.
Not getting the nutrients it needs because it's eating that salt. It's like it's having a milkshake instead of eating its
It wants a
vegetables.
McDonald's hamburger over a steak.
I gotcha.
It wants fast food and not long food.
Big Mac's really pretty good.
But it's not
so
food.
good for your.
No, it's not good for
No,
your
it's
food.
really not food.
No, it's not food, and it will kill you.
Just once, I only have like one a month. Jeez, God.
How many months are in a year for you? There's not 52 months a year.
See? Now, your next thing you're going to tell me that having 8 glasses of gravy a day is bad.
Oh, no, that's good. Go for that. You're on point.
I think we got a pretty good idea here. We just need to keep practicing and going through this again and again until we really get the swing of it, right?
Pretty much, and log online and find the other Nectar heads out there, and they'll walk you through it.
Okay.
But
So when I get through all this, I feel pretty comfortable with the Spartan regimen. What's next as far as my learning? Getting into the community and talking to people, or what's next?
network for sure. I mean, the nice thing about Nectar growers is that they're very caring, they're very sharing. They definitely like to watch others succeed. I think the next main thing off of this is your Spartan. So start looking at the new additives, or look into compost teas, look into microbials, look into enzymes. There's a lot of great companies out there. Microbe Life. You got Cultured.
Mammoth Bee. And
Mammoth Bee. You got all these folks that are producing these liquid microbes. So if you're not really ready or professional enough to get into the compost tea world,
you can get
bottled
those
microbes.
Okay. What about SLF 100? That's something you probably that will be your first thing you would add on, you think?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then maybe start looking at your microbes as far as other microbial type products.
Yeah.
And then work on getting yourself into figuring out the tea situation.
Yeah.
Maybe start with an instant tea, move
Well,
into
I think
maybe.
you start with instant teas. You're going to see the benefit of teas, and then you're going to start wanting to brew your teas. Then you're going to want to research brewing teas, and then once you get that dialed, then come back and we'll start looking at enhancements.
Okay. Very cool. Well, thank you very much. I know you didn't want to come in, and I made you, and I'm sorry, but we had to know from the source. That's it. I love you. Scott's fond of you as well.
Gently fond.
There we go. See, that wasn't so bad.
Not bad.
Okay, so that was fun. We sure appreciate Scott coming down to talk to us about that. when he did a little while back. He also came in a little later, like about a week or so after that, and talked to us a little more about that, about the topic of flushing and how it differs a little bit with the Nectar line than with what we classically think of as flushing in the industry. So that's going to be tomorrow, and then we got another episode after that, and that'll bookend our Nectar for the Gods basics step by step, and then we'll move on to a little bit more the next week after that. And then the first of the year, actually the second of the year, we start with the new show. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. The OCGFAM Show, it's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCGFAM Show. See you tomorrow.